this was a game-changing announcement that is going to change the course of the Middle East forever.
Welcome to Global Perspectives. I'm thrilled to be here on location in Jerusalem, Israel. In this week's episode, I bring you a powerhouse in the Israeli political scene, a woman who is as familiar on the streets of Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Manama, Bahrain as she is in her beloved Jerusalem. With me today is Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan. Join me. Fleur Hassan, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. First of all, I have to tell you, being here in Jerusalem, in your beautiful city, the eternal capital of the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel, it's really, really a pleasure to have you with us on JNS. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, we're very happy you're in Jerusalem, enjoying everything we have to offer, and in not easy times that you made it here. So thank you for coming, Ellie.
Thank you. You are the face of the Abraham Accords. You are a Middle Eastern Jewish woman, political face in Israel. So much to talk about. I'd love to discover first together for our audience your family history. Could you tell us a little about that and your father?
Sure, thank you so much. So I come from a little place called Gibraltar, which is a British protectorate in the southernmost, peak of the Iberian Peninsula. So right at the bottom of Spain, in southern Spain. It's been a British protectorate for about 300 odd years. And my family, my father's side of the family, originally come from Muslim Spain. That's why my name is Hassan. And the Jews kind of were asked by the British to move in because they needed merchants, because it was an army base. And so I was raised in Gibraltar. It's a wonderful place. It's a place of coexistence where my father, who was, a very proud Jew, was the first mayor of Gibraltar and was also the first head of state, was the head chief minister, which is like prime minister, and he won 8 elections. So it's a very special place where a very small Jewish minority has its first prime minister coming from the Jewish community.
So it's an extraordinary story that you have a Jewish man who's the head of a Catholic majority country. Yes. How has your family history informed the work that you do here as an Israeli?
So first of all, I know what a shared society and coexistence looks like. So my kind of home base is, as it exists, a role model in itself. And so I come from that. I know how it can be. In Gibraltar, it's Jews and Christians, the majority is Catholic. There's also Hindus and there's also Muslims. And everybody, it's a small town life, barely ever any kind of anti-Semitism or discrimination. Now and again you hear, as in every way, you hear ignorant people saying silly things. But in general, it's a wonderful place for all the different minorities that it embraces. And so coming to Israel with that background, I believe gives me this advantage that I don't have any type of prejudices in myself. And so coming to Jerusalem, which is the most diverse city in the country, we have here 40% Muslim Arabs, mainly Muslim Arabs. We have 25% ultra-Orthodox Jews, which in Israel is a minority that gets attacked, whether you agree or not, but it is a minority getting attacked. And then you have the secular here who feel constantly threatened by the religious community getting bigger. And so this is kind of a city which is a beautifully diverse canvas, but at the same time, everybody's got these feelings of feeling threatened as a group. And I come with this kind of positive attitude that we can all build a shared society together. So my work is informed by, I guess, a positivity and a belief in mankind that it can work. And that really does inform my work here.
So what do you think what are your greatest challenges as Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem?
Well, first of all, the biggest advantage is also a weakness, which is how do these minorities interact with each other? And I say to my Arab friends all the time, you know, it's most of the time I'm just trying to make peace Jews between Jews and Jews, rather than Jews and Muslims, because the ultra-Orthodox minority in the city is double the size of the percentage of ultra-Orthodox in the country. So in the country it's over 10%, here it's 25%. The Muslims, the Arabs in the country is about 20%, here it's 40%. So the difficulty is that Jerusalem has a problem with a very low workforce participation because these two minorities have got, you know, social economic problems that we need to deal with and that the country hasn't dealt with enough. And we have that double. So the intensity of the challenges of these two minorities are double as difficult here.
Do you have any quick prescriptions?
Well, I think that we're definitely, so the first thing I say is Jerusalem is extremely important, not just because we're the capital of the state of Israel, we're the capital of the Jewish people, we're also the, you know, the capital to a very large extent of the spiritual world. Christians come here, Muslims are also pilgrims in our city. Not just because of that, but because of the fact that we're also the poorest city in the country because of these two minorities. So the prescription is basically, how do you mainstream these minorities? How do you bring equal opportunity? Now, the reason they have equal rights, but equal opportunity is not happening because of their own leaderships. So when it comes to the ultra-Orthodox leadership, they don't want their people to integrate into society. They don't want their people to work, to go to university, to go to the army. We're fighting against the leadership that doesn't want the ultra-Orthodox to integrate, because that is threatening to them. In terms of the Arab community of Jerusalem, you have the Palestinian leadership from Ramallah intimidating them, again, anti-normalization. So their own leaderships are keeping their own people back from prosperity, integration, and just more opportunity. And so we're fighting their own leaders, and that's really, really difficult. But the more time passes and the more there is a quiet normalization going on between the Arabs and the Jews in the city, the ultra-Orthodox are looking around, the young generation are saying, we don't need to be abjectly poor to be Haredi. Look at the Haredim in America. Look at the ultra-Orthodox in America. Some of them are very prosperous. Look at some of the ultra-Orthodox here, business people. And so the internet is doing so much for these two populations in terms of integration and seeing what the possibilities are out there. So that's happening, and at the same time we're bringing a lot of government funding into higher education, into programs of excellence, into integration, into high tech of both these populations, into training an intelligent workforce that have been undereducated because of their own leadership. And so we're doing our part, and slowly the field or the grassroots is coming to us as well.
Well, that's a very hopeful message and hopeful.
I'm an optimist.
And I'm sure you must be to do what you do. Fleur, you mentioned the word normalization right now. And the first time that I met you in person was in Dubai. And I really have noticed that you have become a face of the Abraham Accords for the state of Israel. Whether it's on mainstream media, social media, you are someone who everyone is turning to for your thoughts on the Abraham Accords. So tell me a little bit about, one of my sources tells me that you were kind of doing a lot of behind the scenes work on building relationships with the Gulf countries well before the accords were signed. Tell me a little bit about that and your relationships there.
So, I mean, this last year, with all the challenge and all the difficulties of COVID, has been such an incredibly positive year diplomatically for Israel that I'm just blessed to be here and somehow have gotten myself into the front lines of this. It did start before the announcement of the Abraham Accords, and I tell you, it started with the wonderful people and the wonderful team of David Friedman here in Jerusalem, and my friend Ariel Lightstone, and the incredible people that the Trump administration sent here to the American embassy. Well before the Abraham Accords, I would say even almost a year, saying, why don't we try and do something in Jerusalem with some of these countries? And I was like, wow. they're interested. This was the under the radar stuff going on before the official announcement. So under the radar, there was already a lot of momentum going on that I was exposed to by, being close to David Friedman's team. And I was super excited because I saw an opportunity to get Arab countries that were friendly to us involved in our development work in East Jerusalem. I'm like, listen, this doesn't have to be Jewish money. This doesn't have to be Israeli money. Be our partners, and let's take the Arab community of Jerusalem and let's advance and let's bring prosperity, let's do development. And my co-founder, Dorian Barak, and I, Dorian Barak is a businessman doing work. He's originally an LA Jew who has been in Israel for a number of years, and he's been doing, as a business person, he's been doing work in the Gulf for about 10 years. So he had the business experience, and I was bringing kind of the diplomatic conversations. And we said, we've been talking about this for so long. This is the new frontier. We just had a feeling. This was June, before the announcement. Let's create the council.
What council are we talking about?
So we founded the UAE-Israel Business Council.
Great.
As a way to try and bring business people together from the two countries before this was announced, before we even imagined or dreamed that it would be announced. We really thought it was going to take a bit longer than this. And so we thought we can start building those kind of under the radar connections. So we set this up in June, and then, build it and they will come. In August, the incredible announcement, I'll never forget that day. And it's a day, and RA talks about this, like Winston Churchill talks about hinges in history. And this really was a hinge in history. This was a game-changing announcement that is going to change the course of the Middle East forever.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I was privileged to be at the White House for the signing of the Abraham Accords. It's a day that I'll never forget. I have been observing that the Middle East has changed since the signing of the Accords.
100%.
And the people-to-people relationships, the UAE-Israel Business Council, what are you observing in terms of the change?
So first of all, when the announcement was made, within 48 hours, we had an online platform that was basically saying to people, you want to do business, you want business connections with the UAE in Israel, and the UAE saying, Israelis, join our platform, tell us what you're interested in, and we will make those connections.
Amazing.
And it's really amazing.
It's incredible.
And when you analyze the numbers, originally I thought, it's going to be all Israelis wanting to do business. No, we have 45%, and then the rest is Americans, Moroccans, and other Abraham Accords or Arab countries. I get messages every day, and this is what's significant about the Abraham Accords. It's not just affecting Abraham Accords countries. I was getting messages from Morocco before they joined the Abraham Accords. I mean, that was another incredible achievement by Trump and Kushner to be able to bring in Morocco, almost at the last minute of the administration. That was really incredible.
It was an incredible achievement. Another game changer in the region.
And as a Moroccan Jew, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that I can go to a country that I call home. I have family in Morocco. I've been to Morocco a million times as a British citizen, not as an Israeli. And so this is a real incredible opportunity. So what's interesting is I get messages every day from Egypt. For example, Egypt has had peace with Israel for decades, right?
Yes,
Since the 70s.
We used to call it a cold peace, and now we have warm peace between the Accords countries and Israel.
Exactly, but it's contagious. And so I'm getting messages from Egyptian business people saying, why can't you make an Egypt-Israel Business Council? We've never had this people-to-people peace. The people are coming. I get messages from Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Wow.
I get messages from Saudi Arabia. Something is happening. Something has turned. And so my hope is that the Abraham Accords does not just encompass new Arab countries that want to make peace with Israel and create a new reality for our children, but that the Arab countries that we already have peace accords with, like Egypt and Jordan, join this train to create a warm peace that we need in this region. And so, I couldn't be more excited. So the reason why I guess my face is known is because I was the first, I think I was the first politician to actually fly there. I did this immediately, end of September. I spent, Simchat Torah with the community, with the nascent communities. And, and I came and I said, we are serious about peace. I know they're very serious about peace. And everybody's kind of run towards each other. The friendships that have been created in such a short time by extremely authentic and genuine people is what I didn't expect, and has been the blessing that I have people there, that I have the same level of trust and friendship and love that I have with friends that I've had here for 20 years. And the fact that they're Emiratis, it's just by the way, we're all people wanting to make our region better. And that's what's extremely exciting.
Yeah, again, I've observed exactly what you're saying, that that the peace is flourishing, that the people are kind of just running to each other. It's been a warm embrace between Emiratis, Bahrainis, Moroccans, even Sudanese, and Israel. And also, there's this sense that the recent Gaza conflict was a test of the Abraham Accords, and that the test was passed with flying colors.
I agree with you that the test was passed, but there were very difficult moments. And I can tell you this because I'm on these forums. I'm on about 5-6 WhatsApp groups between Israel and Emiratis and Bahrainis and other different countries. And these are people that we celebrate each other's victories and we sympathize with each other's losses. These are groups of friends that constantly chatting, constant chatter on WhatsApp. And there were difficult moments, I'm not going to lie. And the reason why there were difficult moments is because although we have this warm peace people to people, the media outlets over there have still remained a little bit biased, to put it mildly. And so the coverage they were getting and also the influences that they follow was still very much against Israel. And I'm not asking for them all of a sudden to be pro-Israel. I'm asking for balance. And so what we decided to do in one of our forums, we took the law into our own hands. We said we're not going to let the media dictate, the feelings here. And so I did an emergency briefing, invited all the Emiratis and Bahrainis and other Abraham Accords country people that we know. And I said to them at the beginning of the briefing, it was on Zoom, of course, there is no uncomfortable question. Ask me anything you want, and I will try and answer as honestly as I possibly can.
What was the toughest question you got?
So the toughest questions were, of course, about very sensitive issues like Sheikh Jarrah. There were questions that I answered, but the context that I wanted for them to explain is, look, these so-called provocations are very deliberately curated by Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, Fatah. This Sheikh Jarrah issue, for good or bad, has been going on for 40 years. Why is it this week? Because that's the deliberate nature of this. Why all of a sudden are there problems in Haram al-Sharif, in Al-Aqsa? Is because this is very deliberate. Because we sanctify the freedom of worship in Jerusalem. We had last week for the festival 100,000 worshippers there, pilgrims there. We actively facilitate pilgrimage of Muslims. We put buses at the checkpoints in Kalandia where Palestinian Authority, Palestinian Authority territories where that are run by the Palestinian Authority. People want to come and pray. We put buses and we take them there so they don't have to walk and be 10 people on a car and causing danger to themselves. This is what we do. We organize services there. We organize prayer there. And so all of these so-called provocations are deliberate. I'm not saying that there are no issues in Sheikh Jarrah. I'm not saying that we made one mistake. We put those barriers on Damascus Gate so people wouldn't sit there. We were coming out of Corona. We had the Meron tragedy the week earlier where 45 people died.
Right.
In the whole conflict, we didn't have 45 people dead, thank God.
Right.
And we had 45 people dead like this in Meron. We were trying to do crowd control. We made a mistake. And the mayor, I'm very proud to serve under, Moshe Leon, spent a week convincing the police to get rid of those barriers. That was our mistake. But they just grabbed onto these, different, issues that are always there. Of course you can have issues when you have, these different minorities and the radical elements in them. But these were radical elements planted there by Hamas because they wanted to say to the world, hey, we've been ignored in the Abraham Accords. We've been ignored by the incredible bridge building going on in Jerusalem that I'm very proud to be part of between East and West Jerusalem. We've been ignored in the Israeli elections when for the first time an Arab party, part of them, the Muslim Brotherhood, is now holding the balance of power and is part of the Israeli government with a minister. This is not what Hamas wants. They don't want normalization. They don't want their people moving forward. They want to keep an open wound because they have no interest in making peace. And so it was these elements within our society in East Jerusalem that were, inflaming everything. And so this is what I explained to our Emirati cousins.
Do you think they heard your message?
100%. And there were many different questions, and there were things that maybe we will or will not agree with. But what they did see was that we're trying, that we do believe in a shared society, that we do believe in normalization, and the elements throwing the rockets are the ones that don't. They got that. But it was a very honest and at a points painful and uncomfortable conversation. But it had to be done. And I've always metaphored this relationship, with a relationship at the beginning I said, the enthusiasm with the different countries and the rapprochement was like dating. This is our first little argument. It doesn't mean the relationship is over. It's our first tiff. It's our first year of a relationship. It's okay to disagree. What we have to do is disagree respectfully and disagree while still building the beautiful relationship. And the new Middle East, we're building the new Middle East.
Exactly right. And I think that any realistic observer of the region knew that given the fact that Hamas is still a presence in Gaza and that they, kind of incite tensions and attack Israel routinely every so many years, that we were going to see events between Israel and Hamas. And so I don't think that the fact of the conflict was a surprise to Israel's Gulf neighbors. But again, at the end of the day, there was no cutting off of diplomatic relations. There was no dire consequence. In fact, I interviewed for Global Perspectives Dr. Ali Al-Nuaimi from the United Arab Emirates. He just published a piece in Newsweek where he says that this conflict is not between Israelis and Palestinians, it's between Israel and Iran.
Absolutely.
And so
it's a proxy war. I would even say more. Maybe the US and Iran. Because if we're seen as a US proxy here, as an ally, this is bigger than the people in Jerusalem. I always say that ultimately Jerusalem is where everybody conflagrates their political tensions and their political, mission. But ultimately, we're a city of almost 1 million residents that want to move forward our city. And so we have all of that pressure in Jerusalem, as well as just running a city.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and incredible kudos to you for everything you're doing on a daily basis. Fleur, I'd like to move our conversation to Israel-U.S. Jewry. You were just in the United States. You went on a solidarity trip because of the rising anti-Semitism that we Jews in the United States are facing. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that, and what did you learn when you were there?
So, it was actually a very kind of split screen moment when we're here in the middle of a war. Thank God Jerusalem wasn't affected. The first rocket, that was it. And it was Tel Aviv in the center of the country where people were running to their, to their shelters. But in Jerusalem, we were relatively okay. So we were experiencing this terrible attack on our country. And at the same time, I was watching on TV attacks on Jews, just walking on the street, visible Jews like ultra-Orthodox, attacks in Jews in restaurants who look like you and me, not visibly. Maybe we look Middle Eastern, but not visibly Jewish. And I was thinking to myself, my God, the people who say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, which I always knew was total baloney. But the people saying that now are not even hiding behind anti-Zionism. It's just straight out anti-Semitism with no qualms, with no misgivings. Just let's attack Jews. And I just thought to myself, I was a diaspora Jew. I immigrated to this country 20 years ago. I know what it is to be a concerned diaspora Jew for Israel, and I now had a different feeling, how to be a concerned Israeli for my diaspora brethren. And I couldn't just sit at home. You know, I have ants in my pants. And so I spoke to a couple of my friends in Jewish leadership positions, and I said, I think it's time, after the fact that it was diaspora Jewry that built this country, that built the infrastructure, that donated everything we can possibly imagine, not just of their funds, but of their ingenuity and creativity and connections. We owe the State of Israel to diaspora Jewry. Now this is our moment. Now that nobody can be anti-Semitic towards us here, or most of the time, it's our moment to go out and say, what do you need? How can we help you? We're now an advanced society with incredible defense and security technology. We're an advanced society with connections, with abilities, with capacity. What can we do for you so that you don't have to suffer as a Jewish community in the diaspora because of a war going on in Israel? And I'm very proud to say that the mission that, we invited some people on the mission, and so we went and we learned, we sat and we listened. For 3 days, we spoke to communities that had been vandalized, to a guy who'd been beaten up, to the people who deal with security in the different communities. What are their challenges? What are they doing about it? To the Anti-Defamation League, to the federations, to the Jewish Federations of North America. So we met with the Jewish leadership and who are telling us what they're doing about it. We also went to campus. We went to Columbia Campus Hillel. We found out really the difficulty. I think my biggest concern today is for students on campus in the United States and in Europe. And I guess for me, I'm a European. For me, I guess the biggest insight of all is that in Europe, we've always been kind of used to some level of anti-Semitism, and we've kind of developed a tolerance for it, however horrible this sounds. In America, this didn't exist.
Exactly.
So the tolerance I had in Europe, America didn't need it because it didn't exist. And now what's happened in Europe is happening in America. And I feel extremely empathetic towards that. And at the same time, coming with kind of that European stomach of, oh, we've seen this before. It's horrible that now you have to deal with it.
It is horrible, and there's two trends that I wanted to delve into with you a little bit. We are seeing in the United States, the younger generation of Jews are kind of drifting leftwards in their politics and in their worldview, and therefore also feeling more and more alienated from Israel. So that survey after survey is showing us that younger Jewish Americans are less supportive of Israel and are somehow perceiving Israel as kind of the guilty party in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Such that Israel's former ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, was recently quoted as saying that the strongest support for Israel today in the United States is among the evangelical Christian world, and that Israel should prioritize them. And he got a lot of heat for that. What's your sense?
Well, I don't agree with him. I agree with him on the facts that the evangelical community is a huge supporter of Israel in terms of political lobbying. But let's not forget AIPAC, which is, of course, historically the organization that has created that has fomented the great friendship between Israel and the United States. But unlike Ron Dermer, I'm not giving up on the Jews of the United States. I think that what we're seeing is a very toxic philosophy called intersectionality, which means if you're this and you're this, you must be that. So if you are a liberal and you are pro-human rights, you have to be an anti-Zionist. And if you are pro-Israel, then you must be a fascist and a colonizer.
How do you think Israel can push back on that narrative?
So, first of all, I don't think the solution is, let's forget the Jews and let's focus on the evangelicals. First of all, we love our evangelical friends. We will continue to strengthen those relationships. But this is the state of Israel. the diaspora is an us, a one. We are one people. Let's not forget, we are one people that somehow shouldn't even exist because there's such few of us in the world. And so even though Jews have many opinions, we are still one people. And so the first thing I tell, and I speak to young people about this all the time, I meet with college students and gap year students, and the first thing I say is, just understand that we're one family. Now, within that family, as we know from Jewish families, there's always a lots of disagreements, and we can disagree. And we can even blame our family for this or for that. We can blame them, they can blame us. That's okay. But just don't lose sight of the fact that we're talking within the family. We're not leaving the family, and we're not attacking the family with our enemies. That's the first thing I try and bring to people. That not forget, this is an extended family, we're one tribe. So once I think people internalize that, I think the solution is to understand and to show the world that we are not one type of people. We can also be, I have on my Twitter handle, Zionist feminist. You know how many messages I get? If you're a Zionist, you can't be a feminist. Why not exactly? Do you even know what Zionism is? So there's a lot of ignorance out there, and there's a lot of education that we have to do. But the most important thing is to understand that we're all kind of in this together. And the most painful thing to me is that when a student gets to campus, they're told either you're pro-human rights or you're pro-Israel. You can't be both. And so the message, we need to do much better in first of all, educating people on the conflict. But we're living in a world of 15-second sound bites.
Yes.
We're living in the TikTok world.
Right.
We need to do better. We need to do better in that world. We have the best army in the world we have in Israel. Why don't we have the best communications army in the world? Jews are great communicators. Where have we gotten lost? Has it been lost within the different political arms of this country that everybody wants to be in charge but nobody can work together? This is ridiculous. We are fighting a war without a headquarters telling us and guiding us. Everybody's shooting in different directions. There's lots of incredibly well-meaning organizations doing the work that the government should be leading. And why is it not leading it? Because we can't agree with each other? Come on. I think we need to put the politics aside. We need to decide what strategy that we're going to use, and we need to deploy our best soldiers. And our best soldiers are the people like us who prove that we're not just one thing. We are Middle Eastern women, we are Jewish women, we're feminists. They don't understand that. What? I've got LGBT friends who are Zionists and who are right-wing. Why aren't they out there more? Why aren't we creating an army of the best this country has to offer, of the best our people have to offer, who are still proud Zionists and are giving out that message to the young people? We need to send our people reinforcements, and we're not doing that yet.
Well, I love what you just said. We're all in this together. What a beautiful message. Fleur Hassan, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. We're all going to be watching you because I think all of us are expecting great things more and more. I know that we're going to see you on the world stage.
Thank you, Ellie. And I just have to say, it's so good to have a Sephardi sister in a position of power in America. I'm so happy that we're friends.
So am I. So am I. Thank you so much, Fleur Hassan.
Thank you.
Fleur Hassan. She embodies the new Israel in which a woman of Mizrahi and Sephardi ancestry can rise through the political ranks. We hope to see Fleur continue to rise and on the international stage. I also found fascinating her conversation about Jerusalem, the holy city, and the tensions between what her citizens consider each of themselves as the minority, whether it's the ultra-Orthodox Haredi sector, the secular Israelis, or the Muslim and Christian Arabs. All of these sectors consider themselves as minorities, and they're all trying to figure out how they fit into Israeli society. Jerusalem always has all eyes on her, and we know that will continue to be the case. But with leadership like Fleur's, I'm optimistic that we're going to see great things from this great city. Thanks again for joining me on Global Perspectives. Join me again the next time.